You can't see quite all of us because we're a little spread out, but there's about a dozen folks in the room with me right now from our Homeless Union chapter, from our Nonviolent Medicaid Army, and from our Poor People's Campaign. And we are in a church basement where tomorrow morning, as it was this morning, and every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, over 150 people gather for a hot breakfast. And this is where our chapter of the Homeless Union was born. It came out of conversations and talking to folks and saying, hey, we keep coming here. More and more people keep showing up. Things ain't getting better. What are we going to do about it? And we started getting organized. And as Kristen told us earlier, one of the slogans of the Homeless Union is you're only one paycheck away from homelessness. And we've extended that, right, to say you're only one healthcare crisis away as well. And in our organizing here in the Capital Region, the direct connection of the lack of healthcare and housing insecurity is made evident all the time. Health issues are constantly being identified as a precipitating event, the thing that caused and led someone into homelessness. And then once someone is homeless, health issues of all types only get worse. And healthcare is a big industry in our Capital Region. Albany Med Center is the only level 1 trauma center in our region. It is the largest employer in our area, and yet they have a massive staffing shortage, and they have the longest emergency room wait times in the country. It is outrageous to expect that anyone could improve their physical or their mental health while they are struggling to secure decent housing. And here at our breakfast, out on the street, story after story after story, healthcare and housing are inextricably connected. We know that decent housing is healthcare and vice versa. You can't have any kind of health without stable housing. And these injustices that we've been hearing about are compounded by the indignity and the shame that is hurled at homeless people by the politicians. They offer wholly inadequate band-aids, and then they will go on the news and publicly say, you know, some people just don't want help. Some people just refuse services. Well, you know what? No shit. Because when the so-called help on offer is a moldy room or a rushed visit with a counselor that ends with you back on the street and nowhere to go, that's not any kind of help at all. We want dignity. We want respect. We want choices. We want our human rights to food, to clothing, to housing, and medical care. And we're going to get organized and fight for those things. This is why the National Union of the Homeless was part of the founding of the Nonviolent Medicaid Army back in 2020, why we are strategic partners in our organizing. And everybody here, it really doesn't matter. We wear all those hats all the time. In the past year, around our country, over 25 million people have been kicked off Medicaid in what has been called an unwinding, but has really just been a massive taking away of healthcare of the poor and most vulnerable among us. Most of those people were kicked off, not because they weren't eligible for Medicaid any longer, but due to procedural reasons, paperwork that didn't reach them, maybe because they had moved in the past couple of years, or paperwork that wasn't filled out correctly. And we know that in our country, under our present economic system, which prioritizes profit above all else, that our human rights to housing and healthcare cannot be guaranteed. They cannot be guaranteed under this present system. The system that exploits poor and working people to put all of the wealth and the resources into the hands of a tiny, tiny few, that system's got to end if we're going to make sure that that UN Declaration of Human Rights becomes true in reality. The only way we're going to end this system is by doing what we're doing here in this room, by doing what you're doing all over the country, by doing what we're doing when we gather together on Zoom and share these stories, by getting organized, by uniting our class across all lines of division. And as we have heard repeatedly, folks saying, to do that, we need to identify and develop and unite our leaders and develop clarity and competence, commitment, connectedness. We know that the solution ain't a light switch. It ain't going to happen overnight. It ain't going to happen in the next hour. We need to be committed to a long-term struggle, right? It took a while for them to take away all these rights, for them to make sure that the system was set up against us. And they've got the advantage, right? The people who benefit from this system, they have the advantage. Frederick Douglass talked about this with the slave power when he was talking back in the abolition movement. He said the pen, the purse, and the sword are all in the hands of the people in power, the slave power. And he said they are organized and they were not at pains to create that organization. But our class, the poor and working class, are disorganized. We are disunited. We are broken apart. And that is by design, because they know we outnumber them. They know if we get organized and we begin to exercise our power even a little bit, they won't be in power much longer. So I'm glad for all of our folks to be gathering here with you all. It's been so great. Powerful to hear all these testimonies. Thank you for having us.